Welcome back. We got State Representative Josh Miller is back with us from District 66 out of Heber Springs. Josh, good morning to you.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. I wanted to get your, first of all, just your general reaction in the last 2 weeks. We had a guilty plea from Milton Russell Rusty Cranford, and it implicated Senator Jeremy Hutchinson taking $500,000 in bribes, is what the court documents allege. Are you surprised?
Paul, nothing surprises me anymore about that place. I'm saddened. If all this is true, and I mean that's the way it looks, it is right now. No wonder people do not trust their elected officials or our system or whatever anymore. Corruption is not a single party issue, and it runs deep in both parties, I'm afraid. And man, it just sucks, for lack of a better word, because not only do you have people who get elected because they tell folks they're going to govern one way, and then they after they get elected, they decide to go do something completely different than what they told their constituents, but then also they're taking bribes and doing all this stuff.
Are you there, Josh?
I am.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, we lost just the last part of what you said. So today at I think 11 is what I read, but it may be, I think they're kind of doing something in the late morning and early afternoon. There's supposed to be a press conference where Jim Hendren, Senator Hendren, and Senator Dismang are going to be announcing rules changes concerning ethics. What the Gazette reported had to do with attorney legislators representing their clients, as well as, people having to disclose whether or not they do business with a Medicaid entity. And I just thought to myself, well, let me just get your reaction to that. Is this too little, too late from the leadership that's been in the leadership the whole time this stuff's been going on?
I believe it is. Personally, it is. I mean, hey, anything they want to do to, promote good behavior, I'm all for it. As you know, Paul, Senator King and myself, mainly Senator Brian King, had run the Medicaid provider disclosure bill a couple of different times. Ran it as a rule change in legislative council. Couldn't get anybody to support it. We ran it. It actually did pass the Senate this last session. Died in House State Agencies Committee, unfortunately. But it's just common sense stuff like that these folks have not wanted to implement for so long, because evidently there's been quite a few folks on the gravy train.
Yeah. I think there's still people that we don't even know, we don't even know about yet. And so talk about, real quick, you say it died in the House State Agencies Committee. You were there in that committee, right? I mean, you and Brian were speaking for the bill.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is correct.
I mean, why did they not? Why did they not like it? It seems like it passed the Senate, and then they just let the House do the dirty work of torpedoing the bill. I mean, this type of accountability, it seemed to me, made a lot of people very nervous.
I think so. I mean, I know there was one argument where that was made against the bill, that the bill was way too broad, and then there was another argument that the bill was way too narrow. And I can't. I don't have I never could understand what the actual real reasons were that people would want to be against this, other than either they were just told to be against it, or or they didn't want it to affect them personally. I don't know. But it's sad. I mean, people. We didn't say it was.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to have a good time on the program today. We're going to get to the news. There's a ton of it to get to. I mean, a lot of it. Way more than normal on a Friday at 6 o'clock in the morning. Hey, folks, welcome to the program. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. And we are so glad that you are with us. If you want to call or text us, feel free. That number is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. You can go to facebook.com/Conduit News. That's facebook.com/Conduit News if you want to watch us do the program live. We also going to be giving away some Liberty Machine T-shirts in about an hour, so you want to stay tuned for that. On this, the throwbacks, and I'm going to demonstrate to folks how people will take something that they don't necessarily need for free. Yeah, we've talked about this many times before. When it comes to a big government program, the people who promote it act like giving it away for free is the hardest part of their job. Matter of fact, they act like that's the only metric for success. Well, did we give away the thing for free? Then we did the thing that we're supposed to do. Well, that's the easy part. The hard part is making sure the people that are getting it actually deserve it and need it, or that's the hard part. Anyway, so I'm going to demonstrate to folks how easy it is to give something away for free. And let's see, what else? Oh, yeah, right. I forgot. It's Johnny Cash Friday, so we got that going for us, too. Yes. Now, for our for our online audience, you guys are probably wondering, where's the music? Well, the thing is with Facebook right now, they have a huge problem with, I guess they hold online broadcasts to a little different standard than they do actual radio broadcasts and that sort of thing. And they're very paranoid about music that you play and stuff like that. But for the terrestrial radio stations listening across the great state of Arkansas, Johnny Cash Friday, a day where we try to listen to as much Johnny Cash music as we can, while at the same time peppering in the news and events of the day. And we have a good time doing it. That's right. So I hung my head yesterday. I didn't cry, but I was hanging my head yesterday as the Supreme Court ruling came down. And that's right, ladies and gentlemen. In a 5-4 decision, the United States Supreme Court overturned current precedent, or, well, it's not current anymore. And they said that states like Arkansas can tax internet businesses in other states and require them to remit sales taxes when you purchase products on the internet. Completely, I don't know if they're, definitely a historic blow to the concept of sovereignty of states. Certainly. I'll tell you one thing. The state of Arkansas is going to jump on this potential revenue that they can now get. I guarantee you there's some big government Republicans that breathed a giant sigh of relief because this extra revenue is going to give them what they want, which is really to hide the budget crisis, the spending, and the idea that we've overcommitted ourselves to big government welfare programs and we don't have the money to pay for our roads and bridges. So the demagoguery bailout plan that they were coming up with, the carefully crafted language, they were coming up with, getting ready to siphon money away from law enforcement, getting ready to siphon money away from education so that they can raise your taxes statewide. That is seems to be that may be put on hold because they'll get their internet sales tax revenue that they tried to get last session. You can hear the skepticism in my voice, but that's just because I know these people. Again, if you show me the players, I can show you the play because we have the same leaders running around down there like they're somebody. And they love the attention. They love to feel like they're doing something with their lives. And this is true. And so, now that they're going to have the opportunity to tax some online business in Indiana that sells something on Amazon, some suppliers, some small business in South Dakota, and now the state of Arkansas will be able to say, you have to be aware, you have to be knowledgeable about the tax laws of the state of Arkansas, and you are now required, according to the Supreme Court, to remit sales tax to us. The one thing I would say to the Department of Finance and Administration, to the legislature, and to Asa Hutchinson, I know you're going to go after this money now, but you have to. It's in all seriousness. I would beg you to consider the Fourth Amendment, and however you collect this money, there should be no executive agency that has a record of the purchases that are made online. The way I see this, there are two ways to do this, and one of the ways would require the state of Arkansas having their nose and having a list somewhere of every purchase that any Arkansas citizen makes on the internet, and that is a violation of privacy and would actually potentially really stifle the market. And I'll tell you, the internet is now going to be forever changed here. The internet is going to be forever changed with this situation. It's going to stop. It's going to start to slow down. This will be the day where it will be marked where the government will start to get involved more and more from this day forward. And what I mean by that is there's now calls for Congress to act. And now that the Supreme Court precedent is overturned and the state of Arkansas could theoretically tax the state of Tennessee, the citizens in the state of Tennessee, there's going to be calls for a national policy and a national law that handles the remittance of sales tax and distributes it where it needs to go. And that may all be well and good at first, which I don't think it's well and good at all, but you got to hear me out here. That may be all well and good at first, but now you got the federal government's foot in the door. Will that lead to a national value-added tax on the internet? Will that lead to a national sales tax? Maybe the federal government tax on a percentage point for handling the whole thing in the first place. Oh, it wouldn't happen immediately, but it would happen down the road. And that is you're on the road to the long decline of just getting this internet that we use, and it's so amazing, the technology bogged down to the point where innovation is not what the potential for innovation is not what innovation is today on the internet. The leaps that you've made even since 2008, I mean, you realize when Barack Obama was elected in 2008, he was using a BlackBerry. He wasn't using an iPhone. iPhone came out in 2008. And look where we are now. Do you understand how crazy that is, and how these little computers in our pockets are, and how and just how interactive everything is, and the innovation that we've experienced? And if the government had been involved, if the government had tried to be taxing this stuff at every turn, there's just no way these entrepreneurs could have survived. The people who are creating the apps and things like that that run the phones. It's a dark day for limited government people, because the government grew yesterday. You need to understand that. The Supreme Court of the United States enabled the government to grow because the governments are now going to get more money. And the only way to shrink government is to give them less money, is to not allow them to come up with new tributaries of revenue flowing to it to fund it. Now, here in Arkansas, we have a unique problem because we're giving them all of our money, and that we're giving them so much of our money that they're figuring out a way to steal it and enrich themselves, which is a huge public corruption problem that we have. It's widespread, much widespread than these people want to admit, and we're finding that out, really in the headlines every day. But that's a completely different story, and we've covered that a lot, and we're going to continue to cover that more. In a 5-4 decision, the United States Supreme Court, and I'm reading here from the New York Times, so forgive me, diehard conservatives. I just wanted to kind of break down some of their wanted to break down some of the where it's cited, because where the 5-4 decision came down, it wasn't on ideological lines. I mean, totally unpredictable. You have a 5-4 ruling. Justice Anthony M. Kennedy said the Quill decision caused states to lose an annual tax revenues of up to $33 billion. Quill puts both local businesses and many interstate businesses with physical presence at a competitive disadvantage relative to remote sellers. Now, hang on a second. I disagree with that. Okay, it's the internet that puts you at the disadvantage, not the lack of a tax. You realize that internet sales and retail is growing. I was listening to a report on the way in. Retail sales grow like 4% a year. There's people in other industries that would die. I mean, they would die if you told them they're going to grow 4%. Out of retail sales, internet sales is only 10%. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you when you go against the status quo at all. You don't have to go 50%. You don't have to go 90%. You go 10% against whatever the status quo is, and the powers that be, they come down on you like a hammer eventually. Remote sellers can avoid the regulatory burdens of tax collection and can offer de facto lower prices caused by the widespread failure of consumers to pay the tax on their own. Now, listen to how this broke down in the 5-4 decision. Clarence Thomas, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was awake, I'm assuming, Samuel Alito, and Neil Gorsuch joined the majority opinion, and then the dissent, you had Chief Justice John Roberts, the New York Times reporting that he agreed the court's rulings in this area had been wrongly decided, but said there were insufficient reasons to overrule the precedents. Quote, any altercation to those rules with the potential to disrupt the development of such a critical segment of the economy should be undertaken by Congress, not the judiciary. John Roberts sided with Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan. What an interesting bunch. Now, if you go over to the Americans for Tax Reform, which is Grover Norquist's organization, his take is one I would tend to agree with on tax policy. Today, he writes, Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist issued the following statement. Today, the Supreme Court said, yes, you can be taxed by politicians you do not elect and who act knowing you are powerless to object. This power can now be used to export sales taxes, personal and corporate income taxes, and opens the door for the European Union to export its tax burden onto American businesses as they have been demanding. If physical nexus is no longer required, as the Quill versus North Dakota case demanded, for sales taxes, then it is no longer required for personal or corporate income taxes. Now, California or any state or city that loses population through exit can tax people and businesses who do their best to avoid that state or city. I'll come back to that in a minute. We fought the American Revolution in large part to oppose the very idea of taxation without representation. Today, the Supreme Court announced, oops, governments can now tax those outside their borders, those who have no political power, no vote, no voice. A dark day, ladies and gentlemen, for liberty-minded people. Now, I want to say something here, because I don't know what the Supreme Court, I don't know what, exactly what they were thinking. The fact of the matter is, the state of Arkansas has a use tax. And that use tax applies to us if you buy something on the internet. You're supposed to pay it. It's voluntary. And I just find it absolutely, it's a travesty to me that states like Arkansas and others, they don't have the political will, or they don't have the personal fortitude, I guess, to actually advocate for the Department of Finance and Administration going around and snooping around people's records and demanding that they pay their taxes, because, of course, that would be political suicide, and eventually the use tax would get taken off the books, I would predict. No, we don't want to do that. See, with the sales tax, it just gets passed on to the consumer right there. They don't even know it. They're numb to it. But when you start having the sheriff of Nottingham coming around, sniffing around, demanding their tax, you're going to have a lot of upset people. So, anyway, this is a different way to do it. The governments want their money. They want their money. They're going to have it. That's what's clear. It's the opium of legislators. They are addicted to it. And we, the people, suffer because of it. Do not buy this argument that small businesses are now going to be saved, meaning not small businesses, but brick-and-mortar businesses, because there's plenty of internet small businesses. Is the only reason I make that clarification. Do not buy this argument that Main Street businesses are somehow going to be saved because of this. No. This is about more money for the government. People will still continue to shop on the internet. They're just going to pay a little bit more. And Main Street businesses are going to continue to decrease based on market demands. And there's a ton of Main Street brick and mortar businesses that are going to do fine because there's people that want to buy products they go in and need to touch and feel. And then there's a bunch of other businesses that are going to go away because people don't want to touch and feel a Blu-ray DVD or Blu-ray movie. They don't need to touch and feel that to see if this is the right one that's going to. No, they just want the next Avengers movie. They want to own it, so they buy a Blu-ray. They don't need to go in the store and touch and feel the Blu-ray. Businesses like that we've already seen are gone. You're going to continue to see that, and the market's going to do what it is, but it's not going to save Main Street businesses. If you're a Main Street brick and mortar business, you need to have a website. You need to be selling stuff online, and that's the smart thing to do at this point. Just to hedge your bets. All right, folks, we've got to go to break. Again, it is a dark day for limited government-minded people. And it is crazy that you can no longer avoid high-tax states necessarily. Because you're going to be, the precedent that this sets, it opens a Pandora's box. And I've heard the argument, we have coal plants here in Arkansas. When is California going to pass a carbon tax on the rest of the country? Those people over there are nuts. Those people keep reelecting Nancy Pelosi. Those are the same kinds of people that would love to tell Arkansas that we owe them money because we are using coal. And they would pass the tax, and now the citizens of Arkansas have to pay money to the people over in California. This invites economic warfare, and it's it's such a perversion of the Commerce Clause too. By the way, it opens the door. It's going to be nuts. It really is. And maybe not as nuts as I just described in our lifetime, but who knows? You never know. Certainly for your kids, this is huge. It's a big deal. We're going to take a break. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Don't go anywhere. I just noticed that CBN has a piece out about Jeff Sessions and the criticism. You know, he cited the Bible in terms of the concept of needing to follow the laws of a particular nation when he was, you know, instituting this no-tolerance policy, ending catch and release, and that sort of thing, concerning our immigration laws, which, of course, has sent the left into a flurry. The left is now open. Because of Jeff Sessions, there's been more leftists that have opened the Bible probably, in the last year. And they've opened the Bible in the last week trying to prove Christians are hypocritical just because Jeff Sessions, hey, you know what? There's opportunity in that. There's opportunity in that. But CBN has an interview with Jeff Sessions. It's pretty good. We got to take a break, folks. We're up against a hard break. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Back in just a moment. Hey, folks. We're trying to build the Liberty Machine, as you hear me talk about all the time. One of the best ways to build this Liberty Machine is to get our content and to get Conduit News Radio out to more people, to make them know who we are and what we're talking about. So I had an idea. What you see here is the 2018 Arkansas Democrat Gazette Best of the Best Reader's Choice Awards. And it says here, let your voice be heard during the Arkansas Democrat Gazette's annual Best of the Best contest. Central Arkansas residents can vote for their favorite restaurants, salons, and more. Well, they can also vote for their favorite radio host. So for those of you listening in Central Arkansas, I would encourage you to go and fill out the Best of the Best. As you can see right here, you get to the best local radio DJ. You know what? Just the fact of getting nominated. Now, you have to fill out at least 10 slots in order for your nominations to be considered. So make sure you're educated about where is the best golf course, in your opinion, in Central Arkansas. But if you'll just put my name in there, I think just being nominated would give Conduit News a platform to get in front of other people. To get in front of, new listeners, and because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get in front of as many new people as we possibly can, because knowledge is power, like you've always heard us say. Thomas Jefferson said, an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. So I would encourage you, this is just an idea, one way you could help build the Liberty Machine.
The bill didn't make it illegal for a legislator to do business with or whatever a Medicaid provider. Just said you had to disclose it. Just have to make your constituents aware of the fact that, in my case, hey, if I'm doing $80,000 to $100,000 a year worth of business in my personal business with say Baptist Hospital up here in Heber Springs. Well, my constituents ought to have the right to know that, because then that, they might think, well, hey, Baptists might have Josh's ear when it comes time to vote on Medicaid spending. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we have to disclose everything else. I mean, heck, a registered lobbyist can't buy me a Coca-Cola when I'm down there in Little Rock or anywhere else for that matter. We certainly don't, they can't spend $5 on us for lunch, but we want to, because of all our ethics.
All right, it's Johnny Cash Friday. Welcome back to the program. 870-275-9799. We appreciate all of you out there listening, and I hope that you guys have a great weekend. And I thank you for starting the beginning of your weekend with us here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. So the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette responds to the Supreme Court decision saying that states can tax other states. Arkansas leaders are sorting out steps to tax net sales, Wickline reports. They quote Congressman Steve Womack, who has repeatedly, now he's up in northwest Arkansas, and of course that's Bentonville and that's Walmart. And so Congressman Steve Womack has repeatedly sponsored or co-sponsored legislation to try to address this sales tax issue on the internet to generate more revenue. Quote, now it's every state on their own, the Republican from Rogers said. And he went on to say that he hopes Congress will act. Quote, none of this money goes to the federal government. All of this money is due and payable to our states, our counties, and our cities. For the federal government, for the Congress of the United States to be standing in the way of them being able to collect what is rightfully theirs, I think it is an abdication of our duty. He goes on, I've been preaching as loud as I can to our leadership under former House Speaker John Boehner, under House Speaker Paul Ryan, and others, that Congress has the unique opportunity to fix a problem before it becomes really chaotic. Well, there's no question that now the Supreme Court's done what they've done, it's going to be very chaotic if you're talking about you're a small business owner somewhere, you know, on the internet, and now you've got to be made aware of all the different tax codes. If you're going to ship to, you know, if you're an Arkansas internet entrepreneur, let's say you haven't, and you have to now be aware of what state of California or Indiana or, you know, if you ship to them, if you sell to them, now you got a big problem on your hands. You got a big problem on your hands, folks. The state of Arkansas's government is going to have to grow just to figure out how to police this. The state of Arkansas's government is going to have to grow to figure out how to police this. I wonder which best buddy is going to get the contract. Hey, if there's a technology firm out there that wants to design the software for the DFNA to police and figure out how to collect the taxes from people in Texas and California and New York, I would recommend that you hire a law firm, and I would make sure that law firm has at least one state representative or state senator that works there. And something tells me you'll have a really good chance of getting the contract to figure out how to develop the software to write it and track all of this. So if you want that contract, you need to go get a law firm that has a legislator that works for it, and that's the law firm you need to hire. And in doing that, you are inadvertently hiring the lawmaker to pass bills for you. So go do that if you want the contract. Now, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, he said, quote, the Supreme Court decision recognizes both the constitutional role of the states and the changing nature of the world economy. Oh, by the way, Asa Hutchinson is now against housing migrant children in Arkansas. We were covering some of the Gazette's pieces, you know, over the last week or so, where he says he seemed to indicate he was receptive to it at first, and then he wanted to help not separate children and families, which, I mean, you know, I took that to mean that, okay, well, then you're okay with the Little Rock Air Force Base being used and everything else. And we were kind of highlighting yesterday the contrast between that apparent position and the positions of Senator Tom Cotton and French Hill, who said, no, absolutely not. We don't want illegal aliens. They should be at the border, keep the families together, but keep them at the border. Don't bring them to Arkansas. So now the governor has come out and he has said that he is against housing these illegal aliens in the state of Arkansas. So, good for him. I think that's the way most Arkansans feel about that particular subject. But Asa said this about this Supreme Court decision. The decision is based upon fairness in the marketplace and is good news for the homegrown businesses in Arkansas that have to compete with online businesses that operate globally and sell locally. Huh. Okay, well, they're putting forth this narrative that this is not about getting the government more money. This is about you. They care about small business. They care about your Main Street business. Do they really, though? Do they really care about your Main Street business? No, they don't. Not in any of the other discussions. We're gonna at 7 o'clock. We're gonna talk about the tax farce and what they're up to. Ladies and gentlemen, these people don't want to actually cut your taxes if it means less money going to the government. They want to say they cut your taxes, but they want to shift money. They want to raise taxes over here. They're now talking about raising taxes on your cigarettes. And I'm sure that they will. Because what? Is there enough of resistance of cigarette smokers out there to rise up and say, no, don't tax us? It's a sin tax, right? And in the world of Obamacare, totalitarian-minded people who are control freaks would say, well, your unhealthy lifestyle, we have to pay for your unhealthy lifestyle. And that only makes sense. It's a great economic argument if you believe in socialism. If you believe that we're born into this world enslaved to one another by law, and I'm born into this world fully responsible for you, and you're born into this world fully responsible for me. Now, not in any kind of religious context, not in any kind of love thy neighbor as yourself, not in that context, but it is in the law. Well, then, yeah. You can tax cigarettes, should make cigarettes illegal. It should make bacon illegal, actually. Because we all have to pay for each other's health care. And I'm going to talk more about that at 7:05, but that's actually where we are now, by the way. But so they're talking about raising your taxes on cigarettes and everything else. They don't care about small business. They don't care about the people, right? What do they care about? The reason I say small business and cigarettes, because people would go across state lines and buy their cigarettes. Don't think that they wouldn't. Of course they would. Well, what is that going to do to the convenience store? That's, the Arkansas convenience store or wherever. They only care about small business when it means that the government's going to get more money. So now all of a sudden, this is great for Main Street brick and mortar businesses. It really levels the playing field for them. Again, if you think there's going to be some mass change in habit, a growing habit from buying things online, and all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh. I mean, do you know of anybody, honestly, the governor and the rest of you guys, do you know of anyone that wakes up to the news today and hears that there's an internet tax coming soon? Oh my goodness, I'm not going to shop on Amazon anymore for my books and my movies and my, anything that pops into my head late at night. Oh, I need that. I'm not going to shop at Amazon anymore. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to go into town. I'm going to hitch up the horse and buggy and go into town because they're taxing the internet now, and I might as well go and buy on a Main Street business. If you know that person, I would love to talk to them. I really, really would. That person doesn't exist. So to pretend that this, and they say, well, it's a level the playing field. No, what you are trying to tell these Main Street businesses is that now that you have the internet tax, their business is going to be okay, that they're going to get more business now. And that is not true. The real truth is the government, they don't want to come out and say, well, it's what Dan Douglas says. Now, what are we going to do with all that money? That's for us to decide. When Dan Douglas, remember when he said that? He said when he was pitching the internet sales tax back in 2017. Now, what are we going to do with all that money? That's for us to decide. It's what he said. It's like one of my favorite lines, except they're closing the limited. Whatever they sell, I don't know. Joe is in the process of queuing something up. I don't know what in the world he could be queuing up right now. Oh, come on. We have to play it. You have to. The reason you do is it's kind of a tip of the hat. I mean, we got to have a good time, right? We got to have a good time today. I mean,
in 1972,
it's not a great day for living.
I bought a Led Zeppelin 4 album for the song Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, got cut off by Dan Douglas there mid-sentence. It's an honor.
Let me tell you about the internet tax. Let me just explain this to you, okay? I wear Wrangler blue jeans, all right? Why? Because they're cheap. I'm buying for $19.95 a pair. And they make my booty look better, so I'm told. Main Street in Arkansas today is bleeding. And they are bleeding because they are at a disadvantage to the online retailers. And it will tell you how much money you have spent with VictoriaSecret.com or wherever you shop. In 1974, I bought a Doobie Brothers 8-track tape for the song Blackwater on it. Anybody remember that one? It was good. Chosen to do business in this state. Now people say, what are we going to do if this passes and we have all that money? That's for us to decide. But I ask you, what are we going to do if we do not pass it and we lose our brick and mortar stores, our stores that employ our citizens in our towns?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make just a couple of comments. One, Mr. Waters said that this is an unconstitutional bill, and it is.
Not anymore.
We can either fund the future of Arkansas, we can either take care of our Main Street businesses, or we can just say to hell with it.
I just want to stop
in 1995.
Stop for a second. We're going to pick it back up. I just want to say it is no longer unconstitutional. SB 140. Because of I just want everybody to understand the implications here. SB 140 is no longer unconstitutional, and I'm sorry to derail the Dan Douglas vibe. Let's keep it going. Let's keep the party going.
I bought a CD, a Shania Twain CD. It had a song on it I liked, and I wanted. Whose bed have your boots been under?
Whose bed have your boots been under?
They're closing the limited, whatever they sell, I don't know. We see what the budget is. Everybody wants, or a lot of people want to cut taxes. Other people want to fund certain projects. We have to have money to do that. If you have special projects, if you want to fund pre-K, you have to vote for this bill. If you want to fund highways, you could vote for this bill. We have to decide how to divvy it up. In total, this could amount to $150 million a year or more. That's my viewpoint on this. I don't consider it a new tax.
Fantastic.
In 2011, I downloaded a Lady Gaga song, Born This Way. Any woman that wears a meat dress, I've just got a lot of respect for, you know.
And for the record, I always try to get a good-looking woman sitting beside me.
And after it passed out of the Transportation Committee overwhelmingly, I did what a lot of us do, especially when we get older. Representative Hendren, I went into the men's room, and as I was standing there staring at the wall, as we all do, I heard a voice beside me. It was a man that said, now listen to this. The man said, one thing you didn't mention.
And for the record, I always try to get a good-looking woman sitting beside me. Oh, which school you want to close, which prison you want to shut down. Or are we going to draw lots to throw people out of nursing homes?
That's how much
How
they
are
need
we
the
going
money.
to fund these issues? We all know that. We passed medical marijuana here. I didn't know we'd realized we'd started smoking it yet.
All right, it's Dan Douglas, everybody. It's the Dan Douglas musical montage on the day after the Supreme Court decision essentially saying the state of Arkansas can tax out-of-state sellers. And so that's the key, that's the champion. He survived a primary, too, after all of that nonsense. I actually think, hey, if there's any investors out there that want to invest in a reality TV show, I've got a candidate for you. I'll produce it. No, seriously. I've heard through the grapevine that Dan Douglas is actually quite fond of this musical montage. I'm not fond of his policies that he advocates at all. But I'm telling you, if somebody wanted to, next year, January 2019, there should be reality TV cameras, and they should follow Dan Douglas everywhere. They should mic him up, and they should just follow him around. It would be TV gold. You could make that money. I'm telling you right now, it's a fantastic idea. I'm just saying, don't doubt me. I think all of you know that I'm right here. Now, we had some Facebook comments here. Somebody says that I need a bigger coffee cup. I'm actually switching up the coffee regimen thing. I realize when I drink out of this thermos or whatever, I don't actually enjoy it. I like it out of a mug. I don't know if it breathes better. But Gary writes that Walmart already destroyed the mom and pop stores years ago, and that's a really good point. That's certainly a good point. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So the part where he says, okay, in that Dan Douglas musical montage, the part where he says, are we going to draw lots to throw people out of nursing homes, which school you want to close or which prison you want to close? This was a part of the 2017 session where Arkansas Republicans who were in leadership, and I consider Dan Douglas to be one of those because he was the front man on all these tax increases, the gas tax and the internet taxes, they desperately were showing their cards. They were saying, we have to have money to do things. We have to have money to do things. They were showing their cards that Arkansas was in a financial situation where we are over-leveraged and we don't know where the money's going to come from, okay? And that's why the Tax Force Commission is not focused on cutting taxes, meaning giving you more money and the government less money. They're focused on tax shifting because they have no money to let us keep. They see their budget is so overwhelming. So there is a sigh of relief right now at the Marble Palace in the elite, those who want to, because they know how badly Arkansas needs that money. They know how badly Arkansas needs another $150 million a year in taxes. And if they're able to tax Indiana or South Dakota or any of these businesses that are shipping products into Arkansans because they're buying online, now they have a new tax base and they need that money. And that's what they're going to do. Now, here's the real question. Here is the real question. Because if the internet sales tax had passed in 2017, politicians were claiming they would reduce our taxes by the same amount. So my question is, are they going to do that now? Now that the government is going to be getting more money from the people of Arkansas because these businesses are going to pass on the cost to consumers here in Arkansas, is the state of Arkansas going to take that internet sales tax money that they're now going to get when they inevitably pass? They inevitably are going to start collecting this money from California or wherever. Are they going to reduce the money? Are they going to reduce the size of government? Are they going to reduce taxes elsewhere? I don't know. I don't think so. I think they desperately need the money. I think they're breathing a sigh of relief. They've got the tax force running interference, claiming tax cuts when it's going to be revenue neutral. Okay? I hope it's not revenue neutral. I hope it's an actual decrease. But see, when you do this tax shifting, you're still going to have some people paying higher taxes than others, than they are now. They may have lower income tax, but if they're a smoker, they want to raise the taxes 15 cents a pack. Well, if you do that, well, now you have this section of the population is paying more than they were, so this section of the population pays less. So you tell me how that's not a tax increase. Again, we're not going to survive this as a movement, if we can't agree on the definitions of words and phrases, what does a tax cut actually mean? We'll be back in just a moment. Johnny Cash Friday.
What does the name Triple R have to do with bail bonds? Well, the Triple R stands for reliable, respectful, and relentless. When in need of bail bonds, you only need one number. Call 866-593-7457. Even if Triple R can't help, they'll take the time to provide you with the numbers of other bond companies in your area that can be of service. That's why they're the hub of Arkansas bail bonds. Triple R Bail Bonds has an app, they're paperless, and always reliable, respectful, and relentless.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Joe and I talking about our newest parody idea. I'll tell you about it maybe next hour. Also going to give away some Liberty Machine T-shirts the next hour, so you want to stay tuned for that and how you can get them. Folks, one more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk, 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Laws and reforms and so forth, but we don't want to put a stop to, or we just don't want to require folks to disclose what's actually going on, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm hoping and I'm optimistic that maybe we can get it past this upcoming session. Who knows? Well,
I mean, I certainly, for the sake of the people, for the sake of good government, of course we want these, these reforms that, Linda Collins Smith had a good one. Attorneys don't need to be representing their clients before the legislature, or legislator attorneys. And of course, she's targeted in a primary, and so was Brian King, targeted in a primary, and they both lost those primaries. And yet they're the two senators, Josh, that we're trying to expose everything we're now seeing slowly drip out. And so, Senator Terry, I think that's why, Senator Terry Rice, for example, called on the resignation of Jeremy Hutchinson, and so did Linda Collins Smith, Bill Sample, State Representative John Payton. I think it's because the confidence in our government right now is extremely low, and especially for Republicans. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Josh Miller. What does this do to the Republican Party, where people campaign on being the moral standard, the party that's on the moral high ground compared to the Democrats, and yet we're in control of the leadership, we're in control of the legislative branch of government, the executive branch of government, and yet the guys at the helm are very corrupt, it appears.
Well, I will say this, Paul. If you put Representative Josh Miller in the shoes of Senator Jeremy Hutchinson right now, there would be no cause for me to resign, because I would have already been thrown out. And that's there. I would have been called on to resign and made to resign months ago. And you're absolutely right. Look, any of this stuff, it hurts the party, but the party's been hurt for a long time. The party's been hurt just not even quite a year after it gained the majority in the state, because the party didn't do what it told the people it was going to do, and we went away from standing for what the principles are that are laid out in the Republican Party platform. This other stuff, this hurts. It hurts because it hurts people's confidence in their leaders, in their government. It's sad. I don't think it's asking too much of Senator Hutchinson to resign. He's not running again anyway. We've got 6 months left. Step aside. Don't drag this out any further. But like I said, I can guarantee you, if it had been Senator Linda Collins Smith, Representative John Payton, myself, or Senator Brian King, we'd have already been thrown out.
Yeah, because you guys are not a part of the club, of the good old boys system, as it is. It's very protectionist. We have seen, and when I say the leadership, I consider that John Woods used to be in these leadership positions. Jake Files was the chairman of the Revenue and Taxation Committee. And so you look at this, and now we have Jeremy Hutchinson, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. These are people who are protectors of the status quo. There's more to come out too, I believe, and so. I appreciate what you're saying, Josh, about, Jeremy needing to just go ahead and quit, dragging this out. I tweeted the other day that, he needs to resign, maybe take a plea, and who knows who else, he may give up. It's clear that Rusty Cranford took a plea and gave up Jeremy Hutchinson. So we'll see kind of where this goes from here. I mean, where does this go from here? I mean, how do we recover this? The reputation and the faith that we want. I mean, Josh, here's my thing. I would like to be talking about cutting spending, legitimately having this conversation of cutting spending, actually cutting taxes, reducing regulation.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Johnny Cash Friday, and it's right here on Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Thanks for starting the beginning of your weekend with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. We got to have your help, though. One of the ways you can help us is to call or text. Let us know what you think. 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you want, or also Facebook.com/Conduit News. That's Facebook.com/Conduit News. Here in just a minute, we're going to be giving away some Liberty Machine T-shirts. We have a backlog of Liberty Machine T-shirts, a lot of them, and I'm going to demonstrate how giving away something for free is the easiest thing that a government can do. The government acts like giving away something for free is very, very difficult. So when they give away free health care, they give away free welfare, the agencies that often administer these programs, that's their only goal, is to give it away. And they act like that is the most difficult thing, making people aware, making people take the free product. And what they don't understand is people take free stuff they don't need all the time. It's the peppermint concept. You're at the cash register, they're free peppermints, you take one. If you have to pay for them, though, and you got the little charity box there for whatever little charity, you think twice. Don't lie, you think twice. I'm going to let Johnny Cash finish things out here. All right. Okay, Johnny Cash Friday. Thank you guys listening all across these radio stations here in Arkansas carrying us. We really appreciate you guys listening. All right, so let's pick things up right here, shall we? Tobacco. Now, I don't know if we have any smokers out there, but you guys have been demonized for a very long time because you're easy to demonize. Because it's you're a tobacco user. You're disgusting, according to some people. Now, I don't believe you're disgusting, but some people do. They're just gross. You use tobacco. By the way, the one agricultural product that if we didn't have, America would cease to exist. If you go back and you look at the cash cow it was. So it still is, but you know what I'm saying. Like back in the early days, it was one of the main things that kicked off the commerce and people wanting something that somebody else has and the economy and everything else. And so, of course, the government finds a way to tax it. Now, the Gazette reports this headline here from Michael Wickline yesterday: tobacco tax increase in Arkansas pitched to raise $121 million a year. Now, it's not a coincidence that Representative Matt Pitch, who is now going to be likely the next senator for the citizens of Fort Smith, he's pictured right there. I'm just telling you right now. Look, Arkansas pitched, and then you see Matt Pitch. That's certainly not a coincidence. I'm just saying that's kind of tip my hat because I like that kind of. It's almost like a headline pun, if you will. Now, what they say is they report an extra $1.50 a pack levy will save money, lives, panel told. This is Michael Wickline, who's there. He says, lawmakers should raise the state's tax on cigarettes by $1.50 a pack and use the added revenue of $121 million a year to help offset smoking-related costs and potentially finance tax cuts, an official for the American Cancer Society's Cancer Action Network said Wednesday. Michael Keck, government relations director for the nonprofit, and this is what he told. The task force is reviewing all aspects of the tax code. We know this. Asa Hutchinson said he wants lawmakers to cut the top individual tax rate during the 2019 session. The current tobacco tax is $1.15 per cigarette pack. Quote, our state's use of tobacco has not improved at the same level as the rest of the country. The adult smoking rate is the third highest in the country at 23.6%, and our youth smoking rate is nearly twice the national average at 7.6%. Okay. It goes on. He said it's projected that an increase of $1.50 per pack would reduce cigarette purchases to the extent that it prevents 22,500 young people from being adult smokers. The current tax of $1.15 per pack raises $165.2 million in general revenue and $5.3 million in special revenue. Oh man, can you imagine how upset they would be if people did stop smoking? I mean, the same people here, I mean, the reason they're considering raising the tax is because they want the money. If everybody just stopped smoking, the government would freak out. Boy, they'd be raising taxes on sunbeds and tanning beds in a heartbeat, just like Obama did. Wouldn't they? Man. Also, I'm reminded that Eddie Joe Williams, former Senator Eddie Joe Williams, he passed a tobacco legislation. Well, it wasn't tobacco legislation, it was vaping legislation. So to prove my point, the Arkansas General Assembly in 2015 passed a bill that adopted vaping materials into the tobacco legislation so that if people quit smoking tobacco and they start vaping, that the state gets to tax that stuff too, just in case. You see, the government needs to keep up with the sin habits, the habits of people. They call it a sin tax, if you will. They need to keep up. They need to keep. So if there's a technology, you know, if there are these pins that have these little coils that heat up and heat a liquid to a vapor point, and then you inhale that, they want to be able to tax that too. Now, why did Senator Eddie Joe Williams do that? Why did he have that piece of legislation? Well, he did it to protect government's revenue, to protect the size of government, to make sure that if people do stop smoking and they start vaping, that the revenue will be protected. Is it really about the Cancer Society? Is it really about people's health, or is it all about the money? You know the answer. So they're talking about raising taxes. Now, we're also talking about offsetting them. Well, what is a tax increase? I mean, if you were to lower the income tax from 6.9% to 5.9%, if you were to do that, but you got to raise taxes on cigarettes to do it, people who smoke cigarettes are now paying more taxes so that the rest of us can have a tax cut. I call that a tax increase on certain segments of the population. And maybe that's what you want to do, but let's not claim that we're the next reincarnation or whatever of Ronnie Reagan. Let's not claim that, please. Or let's not claim that we're, Calvin Coolidge or something. You're not. Okay, you're doing tax shifting. You're protecting the size and scope of government, and you're not actually relieving the burden of government off the people's backs. You're keeping it the same. You're just shifting it around, and actually you're increasing it on some people and claiming to decrease it on others. I wish we could just agree on the definitions of words and phrases. I really do. I wish we could agree on what is a tax cut. Does it mean more money going to government? Surely not. Okay. Or what is a tax cut? Does it mean more government? Surely not. Well, what does it mean less? I would say so. Does it mean the same? I would say no. A tax cut means less money going to the government than going there now. Listen to this. Quote, the increase that we're advocating will allow this task force to more strongly consider many of the things under your consideration, be it the implementation of an earned income tax credit, that's a welfare program, or the maintenance of some tax exemptions, which you may otherwise have to eliminate. This could be the vehicle that allows you to eliminate an inventory tax or possibly allow you to do more with brackets and the rates for individual and corporate income taxes, he said. Now, the task force co-chairman, Senator Jim Hendren, said it bugged him for a long time that the state spends a lot of money on tobacco-related illnesses than the state collects from tobacco-related taxes. Quote, but one of the policy issues we face is if we just dramatically raise the tax on cigarettes, we will send that business to Missouri, where the tax is 17 cents a pack. Are we really going to see a reduction in anything other than revenue? Are the people just going to go across the border and develop a huge black market? Hey, Joe, will you do a little research for me? I should have done this before the show, but it just dawned on me. What is the percentage of people who smoke in Missouri? It says that 23% of Arkansans still smoke, and the cigarette tax in Missouri is only 17 cents. We have 23% people that smoke here, and our cigarette tax is $1.15. I'm just curious if the sin taxes that are supposed to disincentivize bad behavior are actually doing their job.
2011, it was 25%.
Okay, so it is high in Missouri then. In 2011, 25% of Missouri, is it Missourians? You have to forgive me. 25% smoke. Okay, all right. I was just curious. If the sin taxes actually do their job. I mean, by that statistic, it would suggest that it is doing its job. So here we go. Task force chairman. Let's see. But one of the policy issues we face is if we just dramatically raise the tax on cigarettes, that'll send the business to Missouri. So then this guy, Keck, replied that Florida and Wisconsin increased their tobacco taxes and exceeded their revenue projections and didn't see a neighboring state with a lowering tax significantly increase its tobacco tax collections. Yes, Joe.
Well, okay, so we brought up the fact that the smoking population is a small segment of the population, like as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Missouri has almost twice as many people as we do here in Arkansas.
Okay. Well, that would be a significant factor, you would think.
If it's a small segment, and if you double that amount, then honestly, per capita, I think.
So you're saying like no difference, really?
Yeah, pretty much. It's 23% right here in Arkansas.
Yeah, that's what it just said in the article. Yeah.
If you brought Missouri down 23 or down half, it'd probably be around that. Probably. Yeah. Probably around 23%.
All right, so afterward, Hendren said this, quote, "We are not here to raise taxes, and that's obviously what his proposal does. But if it makes sense to tax that item more because of health care costs and reduce them somewhere else, that is a legitimate reform proposal." Stop. Boy, I mean, Senator Hendren here has obviously learned to ride the fence from his uncle. We are not here to raise taxes, and that's what the proposal does. But if it makes sense to tax the item more because of health care costs and reduce them somewhere else, that is a legitimate reform proposal. So we're not here to raise taxes, but we're thinking about doing this. As long as we can raise it, or as long as we can lower them somewhere else. Now, I'm going to talk about this revenue neutral baloney here in just a minute. But I remember a time when Republicans did not believe in socialized health care. Do you? Joe, do you remember a time when Republicans didn't believe in socialized health care? Listen, yeah, Joe says no, he doesn't. This is very dangerous. What I'm about to say is going to drive the pragmatists crazy, but I mean, why don't we raise the tax on bacon? Why don't we put an extra grocery tax on bacon? I mean, how many health-related diseases are we all paying for from people who love to eat pork belly? High cholesterol, too much fat, whatever the new trend is. I would that's an honest question to Senator Hendren. Do we want to have a special tax on bacon? And you see where I'm going with this. I remember a time when Republicans were against socialized medicine. And if you're going to say we have to control people's behavior, and we're going to use the tax code to attempt to do it because of health care costs, that is the economic argument for socialized medicine, which is what we are going towards. Now, I completely agree with the economic argument if you're coming from a basis of we are all enslaved to one another and responsible from birth for someone else's decisions. But that is not freedom. That is not a free society. It's not. We are, as the Republican Party and the leadership in Arkansas, they are embracing a status quo and a mission that is contrary to the liberties and freedoms our founding fathers fought for. And it is extremely troublesome that if you're going to say, well, let's raise the tax on cigarettes because if you smoke, you get heart disease, and we all have to pay for it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the very argument for a belief in socialized medicine, and it's a slippery slope because can you have sugar? I mean, sugar is in your body, sugar is like a metabolic poison if you really get down to it. Candy, soda, all that stuff. And what did they do last? They raised the tax on candy and soda, didn't they? I remember a time when Republicans didn't believe in socialized medicine. And you know what? This is me being an intellectual. I know you guys like to think that you need intellectual Republicans. This is an intellectual argument here. And what you guys are doing, in my opinion, you need to really think about the broader issues here, about the proper role and function of government. And if you don't want to do that, and you just want to focus on pragmatism and getting from one point to the next, I feel like the rest of the people are going to be less free when it's all said and done. It's cigarettes now, it's bacon tomorrow, it's donuts the next day. Joe.
So I did a little more research, and I found a new statistic from 2017. The percentage of population of smokers in Missouri is 22.1%.
Ah, so it's a little lower.
Yeah, it's gone down over the last.
Interesting. 17 cents a pack in Missouri. All right, we're going to take a break, folks. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Back in a minute. Yeah. You get some people, that's pretty good. We got a lot of people who are saying these low-fat, high-carb diets are actually what are causing diabetes. That's true, man. There's some crazy studies out there about these low-carb diets and how good they are for you. Just in terms of, I was listening to some people talk about cancer and how, did we talk about this the other day? We did? about how cancer cells can't metabolize oxygen, so the only way to feed them is through sugar and complex carbohydrates. And a Netflix documentary called The Magic Pill spoke a lot about this. And it had to do with, they were showing improvements with kids on this, on these low-carb diets, these keto diets, when it comes to autism and the improvements children were seeing in that. Anyway, we've got Up Against a Hard Break back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, folks, we're trying to build the Liberty Machine, as you hear me talk about all the time. One of the best ways to build this Liberty Machine is to get our content and to get Conduit News Radio out to more people, to make them know who we are and what we're talking about. So I had an idea. What you see here is the 2018 Arkansas Democrat Gazette Best of the Best Reader's Choice Awards. And it says here, let your voice be heard during the Arkansas Democrat Gazette's annual Best of the Best contest. Central Arkansas residents can vote for their favorite restaurants, salons, and more. Well, they can also vote for their favorite radio host. So for those of you listening in Central Arkansas, I would encourage you to go and fill out the Best of the Best. As you can see right here, you get to the Best Local Radio DJ. You know what? Just the fact of getting nominated. Now, you have to fill out at least 10 slots in order for your nominations to be considered. So make sure you're educated about where is the best golf course, in your opinion, in Central Arkansas. But if you'll just put my name in there, I think just being nominated would give Conduit News a platform to get in front of other people, to get in front of new listeners, and because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get in front of as many new people as we possibly can, because knowledge is power, like you've always heard us say. Thomas Jefferson said, an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. So I would encourage you, this is just an idea, one way you could help build the Liberty Machine.
I'd want to go into like the esoteric details of performance-based budgeting for our bureaucracies and activities-based costing for our bureaucracies and our government. Those are fundamentally conservative ideas to limit the size and scope, to prevent the growth of government. But at this point, we have dishonest government. We can't really even have the conversations I want to have until we have honesty restored. And I'm to the point where, I may disagree with some Democrats' socialist tendencies, but if they're an honest Democrat, I'd almost rather have that than have these corrupt Republicans that are dragging everybody else down with them.
Paul, I couldn't agree more. I probably get along just as well. I get along better with a lot of my Democrat colleagues, with whom I could not be more polar opposite, as far as some political issues are concerned. But you know what I appreciate about them is they're honest people, and they're honest about what their convictions are, for one.
All right, here we go. It is Friday, and we are back, and I appreciate you guys being with us. Thanks for starting the beginning of your weekend with us here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we're building a liberty machine. We've been talking about the cigarette tax, and so there's a slight correction, or there was a slight controversy, really. It kind of happened on Twitter, where people were going back and forth. The Gazette reports that it's a $1.15 increase proposed. The tax farce going to be looking at this $15% or $1.15 increase. I'm sorry, $1.50, extra $1.50. Well, then this kind of broke out on Twitter, and Conduit News tweeted another tax task force meeting, another discussion on how to raise taxes. Yet the politicians get mad when constituents find out and ask them about it. And so you have the Tax Foundation, Nicole Keating, who's the director of special projects at the Tax Foundation, and she's working and giving the task force information. She says, were y'all there today? Because that's not what happened at all. The task force identified priorities for cutting $200 million in taxes. That's an interesting response because no one's talking about, there's nothing that was being said about the broad impact here. We're just talking specifically about this goal, another way to raise revenue. And Conduit News responds saying, this is a retweet from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. And Nicole Keating says, yes, from day one, was there both days, he can confirm. This is his article, direct quotes from Jim Hendren saying they are not there to raise taxes, but to raise them on cigarettes to reduce somewhere else is a legitimate proposal on that issue. That we just read you that quote in the Gazette. And Nicole says, and if you have followed today's debate, you know that it wasn't proposed. So Conduit News says, okay, so is this a lie too? Has a quote from you. Thanks for opposing the tax increase. Lawmakers consider 15-cent tobacco tax. And then Nicole Keating says, that did get proposed. Yes, I never said it didn't. Just said the $1.50 didn't get proposed. But even more important is that any proposal is part of the $200 million net tax cut. So coming back to the broad view, or at least the talking point, is what I believe that is at this point. I don't know why you would contrive to always bring that back up if you're not trying to really get ahead on some messaging here, because you don't want another grocery tax debacle, do you, Nicole? Jim doesn't want another grocery tax debacle. This is what they're worried about. See, I've read Nicole Keating's report that she's presented to the task force, where she talks about eliminating sales tax exemptions. And in that report, she says, of the sales tax exemptions that we are still considering, which means, they wanted to raise that grocery tax to the full sales tax level. So when you have the Democrat Gazette and the and KARK4 News kind of reporting the same thing, but I want to be clear, apparently there is some difference from day one to day two. I think the original proposal was to study a $1.50 tax increase on cigarettes. Now they're saying it's only 15 cents. Okay. So then you have Nicole, go back to the tweets here. Nicole Keating saying that it didn't get proposed, but then she says that it did get proposed, but she's just saying what didn't get proposed was the $1.50. She meant, but the 15 cents has been proposed to further study, from what I can tell. And then Conduit News, to remove any confusion on how much of a tax increase is proposed, we could have live streamed and archived videos of these meetings. Senate leadership continues to fight transparency. Nicole Keating says, I guess we have very different views. This has been an incredible transparent process. The task force has been clear on their deliberations and process and continue to invite open comment. I've never seen a task force that has been this open and transparent. Stop. Where is she from, Joe? All right, so she's from the Tax Foundation and from Washington, D.C. So this is an example of her, because she's not from here, she has no idea the issue, the local issues. I get that she doesn't understand the local issues that are important to the way the Marble Palace works. We're trying to get transparency in the Marble Palace by putting cameras in the MAC building. This is a big deal, and there is confusion. Obviously, you have the statewide newspaper claiming $1.50 tax that went out, sending you guys into a tailspin because you're trying to control the messaging. You have KRK talking about $1.50 tax increase on cigarettes, again, sending you guys into a tailspin. It would really be clear, and it would actually help you guys, because you guys could have gone back and clipped out the audio and the video if you would live stream and archive all of the meetings down there, the way the House does when they're in their chamber or their committee rooms. But the Arkansas Senate doesn't want that. And I understand why. You don't want me to be able to make a Dan Douglas montage out of, I don't know, what Senator Jeremy Hutchinson says on the floor, or anybody else, or what Senator Hendren says on the floor. I get that. But in the interest of transparency, you guys signed up to run for public office. So your actions are the public's business when you're on the public's dime. It's not complicated issues. I understand some people may not, because they're not from here, they don't understand the dynamics and the intricacies of what I have been covering for so long, and that's the fact that a lack of transparency really hurts the electoral process, because you have a lot of voters that don't have the information that they could have if they would just not be afraid to go on record with what they're doing as they're legislating. And when they're pursuing these thoughts and they're pursuing these ideas, they're doing it in their constituents' names. And the idea that you're not going to stream and you're not going to record or archive is really an affront to them, because what you're saying is we would rather keep these people in the dark. We'd rather them not have the information to hold us accountable. It really seems that you, are almost afraid of what happens if the people were to find out what really goes on in the bowels of the Arkansas Senate. Maybe you'd be able to see when people leave the floor. I don't know. There was some discussion of that, in a way. I saw where Nicole Keating tweeted, I get that Conduit News doesn't support the task force, but trying to mislead is sad. Nobody's trying to mislead anybody. I mean, any more than the Arkansas Democrat Gazette and KRK ran stories on the very thing that we're discussing. Nobody's trying to mislead anybody. Now, if you want to have the argument, Nicole, that revenue-neutral tax cuts are not really tax cuts, that's not a radical position. Revenue-neutral tax cuts are not really tax cuts. There's plenty of people that hold that position. That's the position that I hold. That's the position that I advocate from. I believe that is fundamentally misleading. To tell the population that you've cut their taxes when it's revenue neutral and the tax burden is still the same overall on the population and actually increased on these people over here and decreased on these people over here, I don't think you're presenting the clear picture. Okay? So if it's revenue neutral, then I don't consider that a real tax cut. Now, if it's not revenue neutral, and it actually is giving the government less money than they're getting now, forcing them to cut spending and prioritize better, I'm all for that. And if the task force does that, it will cease to be a farce in my eyes, and it will literally have done the exact thing that the leadership said, and they can take victory laps, and I will eat crow, and it'll be the best meal I've ever had, because this is not about me. This is not about Conduit News. This is about measurably reducing the size and scope of government. And in this particular arena, it's doing that with the tax code by decreasing the burden, by giving the people who are going to work every day relief so that we can keep more of our own money, we can put it back in the market, we can save it, small business owners can invest, they can hire more people, we can then grow our tax base by having more taxpayers, and that gives the government more revenue. So, I just wanted to set the record straight there. I was monitoring this Twitter conversation the other day, or last night. I was monitoring this and thought it was interesting. I want to make sure everybody knows. Let's throw this Washington Post story up there. We have the latest here. Arkansas Republican governor says he's opposed to the federal government using any facilities in Arkansas to house migrant children who are separated from their parents. Governor Hutchinson said Thursday he understands that officials are looking at the Little Rock Air Force Base and unused federal land in South Arkansas to house immigrants, and that the decision on using the facilities is being made in Washington and not at the state level. Hutchinson says any costs for housing immigrant families would be paid for by the federal government. Hutchinson, a day earlier, rejected calls from Democratic leaders in the majority Republican legislature to recall the state's National Guard soldiers deployed to assist in border surveillance. This is from the Washington Post. So the governor seemed pretty sympathetic, in my view, according to reports a day earlier, about the notion of using the Little Rock Air Force Base to house immigrants, to house these illegal aliens, and now he is against it. And so good for the governor. I think that's in line with the views of most Arkansans, so I think in this instance the governor fits in. But good for him. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous to expect that the state of Arkansas would use any of our land to house these illegal immigrants whether they're with their families or without their families. It doesn't make any sense. They should, if you want to keep them together, that's fine. Do it at the border. That makes a lot more sense. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, I saw that stuff with the First Lady. And yeah, let's go ahead and check in. Let's go ahead and do this now. Let's go ahead and check in with Tim Jacob. Do we have Tim on the line? Oh, we don't have Tim? Okay, we're going to have Tim on the line here in just a minute. Sorry. I saw Joe on the phone, and I thought that we were doing a scheduled segment. We're going to be talking with Tim Jacob with Arkansas Term Limits here in just a moment. Did you see where Melania Trump is now getting all kinds of grief because when she visited the border, she wore a jacket, a fashion jacket, "I really don't care, do you?" And Melania Trump went to Texas, and the media they're freaking out because she wore this jacket that said, "I really don't care, do you?" ? In a graffiti-style print. When the press obviously asked, what is she doing? What does she mean by this? The First Lady's office responded by saying, "It's a jacket. There was no hidden message. After today's important visit to Texas, I hope the media isn't going to choose to focus on her wardrobe." I think this was intentional. I really do. I think this was, in a way, I think they're trolling the media. Melania Trump wearing this jacket is trolling the mainstream media. She's obviously trolling the media because she knows what they're going to do, right? Now, Donald Trump says, listen to what Trump says. Trump says that that this is Melania's way of saying that the media is basically liars and very dishonest, and so that's why she's wearing this jacket. Says, "I really don't care, do you?" I mean, it just drives them nuts. Hey, let's check in with Mr. Tim Jacob. Tim, welcome back to the program, sir, and I just want to know, how's the petition going to restore Arkansas term limits?
Well, we've got hundreds of people working throughout the state, and I just want to encourage your listeners to call the number that if you need a petition, we have 2 weeks left. This is crunch time, and it's very important that we get this on the ballot to give the voters of Arkansas a fair shake at term limits in our state. The petitioning is going well. We have a lot of people working, but if you need a petition, please call 501-590-8260, and they will get you a petition up. You can text that number. That's 501-590-8260, and just text that number, give them your address, and they will get a petition in your hands within 24 hours. Paul, we also have people around the Central Arkansas area all day today at 13700 Cantrell. They're out there right off Cantrell. They've got signs out, and if you just want to come by and sign this petition to restore term limits to the Arkansas legislature that was fraudulently taken away from us a few years ago, just go by Josephine Pankey Center at 13700 Cantrell. We also have folks in Conway right now. They're meeting at the Starbucks at 1035 Skyline Drive in Conway. And if you just want to go by, say hi, pick up a petition, sign a petition, you can go by there most of the day today. They're there until 10 a.m. today, and they're also going to be meeting there at 4 o'clock to 6:30 this evening.
Awesome. Tim, I really appreciate it. We're going to keep doing these updates every day. Folks, if you want a petition, they can get a petition in your hand in 24 hours. Just call the number 501-590-8260. That's 501-590-8260. And or you can go to arkansastermlimits.org. Tim, one more time. You say they're in Little Rock and Conway today. You can sign the petition in Little Rock and Conway today, right?
That's exactly right. You can go to 13700 Cantrell. They're going to be there most all day. You'll see the tent and the booth, and just go up there and put your name down on the dotted line if you're a registered voter. In Conway at Starbucks at 1035 Skyline Drive, they're going to be there off and on all day. And Saturday, we're going to have somebody in Jonesboro, and that's all day at DNW Outdoors at 1711 East Parker.
Yeah.
So please go by. This is crunch time. This is the time that we're going to get this thing back on the ballot and give the voters of Arkansas a fair shake for once.
That's fantastic.
It's important that we.
Yeah, Tim Jacob, I appreciate it so much, sir. Thanks for coming on, and we're going to keep promoting this, okay?
Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you.
All right, folks, you heard it there, folks. I'm telling you, go to arkansastermlimits.org. That's arkansastermlimits.org. If you want more information, you can print off a petition yourself there, but you heard the locations all across the state. Go and do this. We've got to limit government. This is the way to do it, keeping these guys out of office. It's the way I look at it at this point. Hey, folks, do you want a Liberty Machine T-shirt? Do you want one? I'm going to give away 3. You just got to call the number, 870-275-9799. Call that number right now. We're giving away 3 Liberty Machine T-shirts, 870-275-9799. Back in a minute.
What does the name Triple R have to do with bail bonds? Well, the Triple R stands for reliable, respectful, and relentless. When in need of bail bonds, you only need one number, Call 866-593-7457. Even if Triple R can't help, they'll take the time to provide you with the numbers of other bond companies in your area that can be of service. That's why they're the hub of Arkansas bail bonds. Triple R Bail Bonds has an app, they're paperless, and always reliable, respectful, and relentless.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
This is Representative Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. From the beginning, authors of our Constitution, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers advocated the general election of people who possess wisdom, discernment, and loyalty to their constituents. Why? The people expect their representatives to uphold their promises. The representatives recognize the honor bestowed by these constituents. Advancement comes from their followers, not the government. Elections are frequent, and accountability is a compelling factor to loyalty and support from constituents. From a July 5th, 1929 speech by President Calvin Coolidge. This is Representative Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Paul just told me we're giving away 2 more.
All right, folks, that's about all the time we have. We're winding things down. Let me tell you something, though. The 3 Liberty Machine T-shirts we gave away are gone. They went so fast, and we only have one person answering the phones. So we're going to keep it going. We're going to give away 2 more, okay? We're giving away 2 more Liberty Machine T-shirts. So if you still want to try to call. Just keep calling. I know you're getting that voicemail, but we're trying to get to you. Phone lines are all jammed up. Those first 3 went fast. We're going to give away 2 more on this Johnny Cash Friday. Enjoy the music, folks. Arkansas, be safe. We'll see you Monday.